Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tauya Matope, and as I promised in the last segment of my video, I was gonna bring to you more points to be mindful of when you are working as a social worker, working with children, particularly in England. Obviously, the 10 points or the 12 points that I'm going to be talking to you today about might be applicable to all other jurisdictions. It could be in other country, as they are universally applicable. However, I'm narrowing it down to practicing social work with children in England because that's the kind of job which I've been doing for the past 6.5 years. These points will be, like I said, universal applicable in other jurisdictions. So the first point that I need to remind practitioners or social workers on when practicing with children is that you need to take a child's safety and welfare as of paramount importance in the work that you do. You need to always prioritize the safety and the well-being of the children that you're working with, and you need to take action if there are any concerns about abuse or neglect. As you may know, though, for those who have been practicing in England, when it comes to a Section 7, that takes priority over other tasks that you'll be doing. So you need to be mindful about that very number one point. And then point number two is around cultural competence. As you know, the UK is a multicultural society. Particularly, there are places that big cities like London, Coventry, Birmingham, Leeds, even up in Scotland, some of the big cities, they are cultural melting pots of cultures, people from different backgrounds, different languages and so forth. So you need to be culturally competent to practice in such a setting. So it means you need to be aware and be sensitive. So you need to be culturally, to be aware and be sensitive of the cultural backgrounds of some of the children and the families that you're working with. And where you are required, for example, where English is not their first language, you would need to make use of an interpreter. And equally, where they are not able to speak, for example, they are deaf, and they're not able to verbalize, you should be able to use a British Sign Language interpreter, for example, for you to be able to have a conversation with them and to be able to go through with your assessments and do the work that you're doing. So you need to strive to understand their beliefs and their practice. For example, if they are Muslims, you need to know that particular times they would be in prayers. Depending on their faith or their beliefs, there's things that you need to be culturally sensitive around the practice that you're going to be doing with the children and families allocated to you. And point number three is to be mindful of confidentiality. And you need to make sure that you maintain confidentiality of the information that you are obtaining with regards to the children and families that you are working with. And you should only share information with others on a need-to-know basis. And the others that I'm talking about, you know very well, this would be your fellow professionals, either from health, education, probation, or any other agencies that are working with the family. However, there are some settings where obviously if you're in a core group or you are in an initial child protection conference, there's information which is shared there which is sensitive either by the police or from health. You still need to maintain that information as confidential as possible. And confidentiality is one of the key, merits of a good social worker. So point number 4 is around trauma-informed practice. There are some local authorities, obviously, which are, inculcating trauma-informed practice in the way they are working. So as a social worker, you need to practice from a trauma-informed approach, meaning that you need to be aware of the impact of trauma, the impact that trauma can have on the children and families that you're working with. It could be domestic violence, it could be witnessing their parents being drunk, or we could be talking of the toxic trio. Basically, you need to be trauma-informed in the way you approach the work that you'll be doing with those children and families. You need to strive to provide service in a way that is sensitive to their needs and experiences that they've gone through, so that you'll be able to holistically improve their lives, so to speak. And point number 5 is around collaboration. As you know, the Working Together document of 2018 talks about collaboration with other partner agencies. For example, police, health, probation, education, and all the other agencies, that the key agencies that you know you work with when you're allocated to your cases. You need to make sure that you work in collaboration with them. When it comes to your strategy meetings, when it comes to your core group meetings, child need meeting, review meetings, or conferences, initial or review conferences, you need to make sure that they are properly constituted and everybody who is working with that family, they are invited to those crucial meetings. So you need to work closely with other professionals and agencies to provide comprehensive and coordinated services to the children and families that you're working with. If there is a need for housing, make sure that somebody from housing is represented in that particular meeting. And the next point is around empathy. And you need to be an active listener. You need to work in an empathetic manner with the children and families that you're working with. You need to be somebody who is able to listen attentively and be able to use that information to inform the assessments that you're doing on that family, or to inform the interventions that you're going to be doing with that family. And you need to be open to new perspectives around the way you practice. You also need to be open to feedback that you're going to be getting from the clients that you'll be working with. And you need to be empathetic to the experiences of the children that you're working with. This is the only way you'll be able to make an impact in their lives, if you are able to be empathetic with the work that you'll be doing with them. The next point is around advocacy. Remember, you're working with children and you need to be an advocate of the children that you're working with. So you need to be an advocate not only for the child, but also for the families that you're working with. There are instances where, it's possible that the parent would want to access another support service from another agency, but maybe they're having challenges to access those. And you need to be the advocate for that particular family or for that particular child to make sure that services are put in place. And in terms of the work that you are doing, you are ensuring that their rights and their needs are met at the same time, and their rights are being upheld to an extent, so to speak. Yeah. And the next point I'm going to be talking to you about today is around self-care, which is one of the crucial things that you need to be mindful as a social worker practicing with children and families. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your own well-being. This will help you in terms of for you to remain focused on the work that you'll be doing. And you'll be able to better support these families if you are able to take care of yourself. You understand? If you're not able to take care of yourself, how will you be able to take care of the families that you are working with? So when I talk of self-care, I'm talking about knowing your limits and knowing when you need to wind down, knowing when you need to, for example, participate in extracurricular activities so that you rejuvenate your body, you rejuvenate your mind to be able to work better with the families that you're working with. And the other point number 11, is around knowing your strengths. As you know very well, in social work, you should be able to know your limits and know what you're capable of and know what you are not capable of, so that you'll be able to refer to another agents for them to access the support that they need. So you need to know your limits, to know that in terms of this particular thing, I can support my service users or my clients with this and this service, but for this kind of service, I would need to refer to a psychotherapist, I would need to refer to a counselor, I would need to refer to a specialist like this, so that they can, get a holistic support in terms of the needs which are presenting there. All right. And last but not least, is you need to know the children that you are working with. You need to know the children that you are working with. This is usually done through direct work and making sure that the voice of the child comes out in your assessments, the voice of the child comes out in your interventions, the voice of the child comes out even in the outcomes that you are getting. When you get feedback from that particular family in terms of the work that you would have been doing, the voice of the child is actually coming out, showing that there's been improvements in the way that you've worked with them from the time you knew them, from the time you did your assessment, and the time that you planned, and the time that you actually intervened, which I would possibly call the golden thread. So you need to make sure that the voice of the child is actually strong and coming out in the work that you'll be doing. With those few words, I would say these are some of the few tips and things that I think would make you a successful social worker if, practice with children and families. I will be